As my audience knows, I have never been one to avoid controversial issues, and nothing is currently more controversial in the cultural wars raging across this country than critical race theory, or CRT. Before going any further, do not allow my criticism of this dishonest theory to suggest that I do not fully support a fair and honest presentation of this country's mistakes, such as slavery, Jim Crow laws, and segregation. These historical facts should be taught in American classrooms in all of their immorality. So back to what is critical race theory. To give an actual portrayal, it must be synthesized from essays, books, and New York Times Magazine's 1619 Project. The best summary of CRT came from David Brooks in a New York Times editorial, and I'm quoting now. History is namely the story of power struggles between oppressor and oppressed groups. The history of Western civilization involves a uniquely brutal pattern of oppression. Language is frequently weaponized and must be regulated to ensure safety. Actions and statements that do not explicitly challenge systems of oppression are racist. The way to address racism is to heighten white people's awareness of their own toxic whiteness so they can purge it, end quote. First, that definition that I just quoted from David Brooks's editorial was not David Brooks's belief, but it was his best attempt at what is an amorphous definition. Second, that is just about one of the most ridiculous things I have ever heard. The suggestion that anyone born white is racist is in itself racist and offensive. And if that is, in fact, being suggested in schools, now you understand why parents would be outraged. Next, we turn our attention to this 1619 Project, in which lead essayist Nicole Hannah-Jones ridiculously and non-factually states, and I'm quoting, "One of the primary reasons for the American Revolution was American colonial fear that the British would abolish slavery," end quote. These assertions are factually incorrect. As George Will, the Pulitzer Prize-winning Princeton doctoral historian, stated, that theory is about as defensible as trying to prove that the earth is flat. Intellectual criticism of Hannah-Jones' unsupported claim even came from the progressive left when distinguished Princeton historian Sean Willents stated in his essay, and I'm quoting now, "I instantly wondered how anyone, even lightly informed about the history of either slavery or the American Revolution, could write that sentence. There is no evidence of a single colonist expressing support for independence in order to protect slavery," end quote. It would be fair to ask for the intellectual and the philosophical foundations of CRT. I would suggest that CRT is a composite of two controversial theories. The first is the extrapolation of the diatribes of Karl Marx in his manifesto, in which he discusses history in terms of economic oppression. Secondly, CRT theorists blend in the teachings of German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, the father of postmodernism. That theory suggests that there are no facts, and everything is subject to interpretation by individuals, who are not truly individuals, but are part of essentialist identities, race being one of them. I have to tell you that CRT reminds me of the attempts by ancient alchemists using iron sulfide or pyrite to try to make gold. Of course, what they in fact produced was fool's gold.